You wake up, and before you've even opened your eyes, there it is. A chorus from a song you haven't heard in weeks, looping on repeat like it owns the place. You didn't ask for it. You can't seem to switch it off, and somehow it's still there 3 hours later while you're trying to focus on something else entirely. If you've ever wondered what that is and why your brain does this to you, you're about to get a very satisfying answer. First, the good news: you are nowhere near alone. Scientists actually have a name for this. It's called involuntary musical imagery, or INMI for short, and it's earned the much catchier nickname earworm. Researchers have surveyed tens of thousands of people about it, and one large internet study of over 12,000 participants found that more than 90% experience an earworm at least once a week, and about a third get one every single day. This isn't a quirk. It's close to a universal feature of having a human brain that processes music. So why does the brain do this at all? One of the most influential explanations comes from marketing professor James Kelleris, who called it a cognitive itch. His idea is that certain songs have properties that irritate your auditory memory just enough that your brain tries to resolve the irritation the only way it knows how, by replaying the tune. It's less like a memory sitting quietly on a shelf and more like a splinter your mind keeps running its tongue over again and again, trying to work it loose. But what actually makes one song stickier than another? In 2017, researcher Kelly Jakubowski and her colleagues dug through thousands of reported earworm tunes and compared them against a huge library of ordinary pop songs. The sticky ones weren't random. They tended to move faster, and their melodies followed a shape that was generic and easy to sing. Almost nursery rhyme simple, but with a few unusual leaps or repeated notes that made them stand out just enough to be memorable. The same study found something else interesting. Songs that had recently done well on the charts were also more likely to get stuck in people's heads, probably because chart success means you've simply heard the song more. Here's a detail that might explain why earworms feel so unfinished. Most of the time, what loops in your head isn't a whole song. It's a fragment, usually the chorus or hook, cut off mid-thought and started right back over. Some researchers connect this to something called the Zeigarnik effect. The idea, first studied nearly a century ago, that unfinished tasks tend to stick in memory more stubbornly than completed ones. The thinking goes that an incomplete musical loop nags at the brain the way an unfinished sentence does. It's a compelling idea, though it's worth saying plainly that the evidence specifically tying earworms to the Zeigarnik effect is mixed, and not every study has been able to confirm it. Whatever kicks it off, the reason an earworm feels so real is genuinely fascinating. Back in 1999, psychologists Andrea Halpern and Robert Zatorre used PET brain scans to look at what happens when someone imagines a familiar melody instead of actually hearing it. The result, the secondary auditory cortex, the part of the brain that processes sound, lit up in strikingly similar ways, whether the music was real or only imagined. In a very real sense, when a song is stuck in your head, a piece of your brain is playing it, using much of the same machinery it would use if the speakers were actually on. One of the simplest triggers is also the most obvious once you think about it: repetition. The more times a song reaches your ears, whether from the radio, a playlist, or the speakers at a grocery store, the more likely it is to come back uninvited later. Researchers who study earworms have documented this pattern directly, tracking how repeated exposure to a tune in the lab makes it more likely to intrude afterward. Your brain isn't malfunctioning. It's doing something it's built to do with any pattern it hears often, filing it away so thoroughly that it can play it back without being asked. So when does the itch actually strike? Surveys that ask people to log their earworms in the moment find a clear pattern. They show up most during low-attention activities: walking somewhere familiar, driving a well-known route, doing the dishes, standing in the shower. These are exactly the moments when your mind is free to wander, and it turns out a wandering mind is a hospitable host for a song that wants to loop. When your attention isn't fully occupied, your brain defaults to pulling up whatever's sitting near the top of memory, and lately, that's probably whatever you streamed on the way to work. Stress plays a role too, and so does something a little more ironic: trying not to think about it. Research on earworms has found that people who score higher on measures of thought suppression meaning they habitually try to push unwanted thoughts out of their minds, tend to report more frequent and more persistent earworms, not fewer. It's the same paradox behind the old "don't think about a white bear" experiment. The harder you try to shove a song out of your head, the more your brain seems to check in on it to make sure it's really gone, which of course means it isn't. Does musical training make you more of a target? It's a natural question, and the honest answer is, the research is genuinely split. Some earlier surveys found that people with more musical training or experience reported earworms somewhat more often, presumably because they engage with and rehearse music more deliberately. But newer studies looking at the same question haven't always found a difference between musicians and non-musicians. The safest conclusion right now isn't that talent matters. It's that exposure and rehearsal probably do, and formal training is just one route to getting more of both. For nearly everyone, earworms are harmless, occasionally annoying, and gone within the hour. But researchers studying this have noticed something worth mentioning. The people who find their earworms genuinely distressing, hard to control, even a little frightening, tend to also score higher on measures of obsessive-compulsive tendencies. That doesn't mean a stuck song is a disorder. It means earworms and clinical intrusive thoughts may sit on the same continuum, sharing some of the same underlying machinery, just at very different volumes. Now, the part you actually came for: how do you make it stop? Psychologist Ira Hyman and his team tested this directly. They had people listen to catchy songs, then tried to distract them with different kinds of puzzles. Tasks that were too easy left plenty of spare mental bandwidth for the song to keep looping. Tasks that were too hard were just as bad. But a puzzle pitched at just the right difficulty, tricky enough to fully occupy your attention but not so hard that you gave up, was the most effective at pushing the song out. Hyman called it something like a Goldilocks effect. Not too easy, not too hard, just engaging enough to steal the stage. And then there's the strangest, most well-tested remedy of all: chewing gum. In a set of experiments published in 2015, researchers Philip Beeman, Kitty Powell, and Ellie Rapley found that the simple act of chewing gum reduced both the number of songs people deliberately tried to recall and the number that intruded involuntarily. The likely mechanism is that chewing interferes with the small, silent muscle movements your mouth and throat make when you subvocally rehearse a tune in your head, the same kind of inner mouthing you'd do if you were quietly reading aloud. Jam that motor circuit with gum, and there's less machinery left for the song to run on. So the next time a chorus hijacks your morning, you'll know exactly what's happening. It's not a malfunction, it's a side effect of a brain that's extremely good at holding on to patterns, especially catchy, familiar, faster tempo ones, especially when you're not paying close attention to anything else. You can't stop your brain from being good at music. But now you know the trick. Find a puzzle that's just hard enough, or just reach for a piece of gum. So, what's playing in your head right now?